Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Faden, and I'm so grateful that we get to spend this time together helping you magnify your miracles. Today, I'm going to be sharing something that is really important to me. It's really near and dear to my heart, and it's also a direction that I'm going to be going in from here on forward, and I wanted to share it with you, but mostly I wanted to share what I'm calling a woman's path of healing and awakening because of my experience in this field of spirituality. And I've seen so many women struggling, trying to do what everybody else is doing and what's not working for them. And so if that's you and you've been struggling and you don't really feel like you fit into any particular religion or spiritual path, please listen in because this episode is for you. I'm going to be sharing with you my experience as an interfaith minister. I'm going to be sharing with you what I've learned about my own journey and what Mother Mary has revealed to me and what can really help you not only magnify your miracles, but really get to the essence of how do you do that by deepening your connection. And what would that look like for you? But before we do any of that, let's take a breath together. Just breathing in that energy of expansion, breathing out anything you no longer need. Just allowing ourselves to be body, mind, spirit in this present moment. And knowing that whatever you need to hear today to help you magnify your miracles is exactly what you're going to be hearing. I'm going to take one more deep breath together in gratitude, and we can begin. All right, my friend. Well, today we're talking about something that I have been thinking about talking about for a long time. And honestly, I didn't quite have the courage to do it because I know that it might be something that people might have a reaction to, and it could be kind of divisive. And I am an interfaith minister. I honor everybody and everybody's path, but I also need to speak the truth of my experience. And the reason I do that is because I believe that when we all share our own experience, we empower other people, because a lot of times people will see themselves in our own stories. And so I've been on this spiritual path now, literally since I was 11 years old. I mean, I wanted to be a priest when I was 7, and I left the church quickly after that because I found out based on my gender, I wasn't allowed to do that, which seems silly to me because I knew that was what I wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do was help people connect and experience the energy of God. And that is what I do now in my own way, not through an institution. But around 11, I started studying all kinds of different things, metaphysical things, and, all kinds of different things, and had my own health crisis at some point. And that's when I discovered a lot about healing and became a healer and all of that. But I still had that desire in me to be some kind of priest, minister, whatever you want to call that. And so I have studied a lot of the world's religions because that's what you do when you're at the interfaith seminary. You study a lot of different things and you learn about the different traditions, which I loved when I was there. And I started noticing that there was this huge lack of feminine energy. Doesn't mean any of them are bad, but there was this huge lack of feminine energy. And as I started talking to a lot of my colleagues, I started noticing that so many of us were women who were longing to be in service, in some kind of spiritual service, and had so few avenues to do that. And that it was really painful. It was really painful. And as I started to study it, I recognized a few things. Now, I spent 6 years living in a spiritual community, living in an ashram based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. And I'm so grateful for that time, even though I was sad when I had to leave it. I was so grateful for that time because it was kind of like spiritual graduate school for me. And I learned so many things. And part of what I learned was this cycle of time, that we've had time on the planet where people were more awake and aware, and times where people were not so awake, and that this cycle kind of goes up and goes down. We have an ascending time where people are becoming more and more enlightened, and then we're in kind of this golden age, and then the energy starts to go back down again where people start to become less aware of things. And there's 4 of those phases, and each one has a name to it. And the word for that cycle is called Yuga, Y-U-G-A. And so what I learned was in that heightened time, in that golden time period, we didn't write anything down. People didn't need to write anything down because everything was communicated telepathically. Like people just, it's very Star Trek, right? People just, you didn't need to write it down. People's memories were so good. And then as the age started to come down and we started going to a descending time, that's when people started to write things down because they didn't want to forget. It's like, uh-oh. And then each generation could remember less and less and less until we got right down until the darkest time, which would have been about 1800 years ago, I think is when the time changed. Just around the time of Christ being here, he came right at that time where things were getting really, really dense and people started really misunderstanding spiritual truths and taking everything literally and all that. And then he came and now we're in this ascending time as well. Well, we're not quite 100% out of that darkest time. We're just into the second cycle, but we still have a lot of that misunderstanding. Well, a lot of those spiritual texts, the Bible especially, written in a descending time, written when people's understanding was getting less and less and less. And what I learned about this time, this descending time, is the feminine energy is disregarded in a descending time. In that golden age, people like the energy of gender doesn't really matter. In that golden age, the feminine is honored. But in that descending time where people going into ignorance, what happens is the feminine energy isn't honored and women start being excluded from spiritual teachings. And they start being excluded from temples and churches and mosques and all the things. They're not allowed in there. And then over time, it's seen as like that should be the way because it's based in ignorance. So what ends up happening is now we're in this patriarchal culture. And patriarchy simply means that the male energy is honored and revered, and feminine energy is not. Okay. And I'm sure that you can understand that. And you might be saying, well, how does this relate to spirituality? I'm going to share with you how it relates to spirituality and why studying the Bible might not be working for you, might be holding you back. Okay. I've heard a lot of women saying to me, I go to church, I do all the things, but something is still missing. I just don't feel like I follow these teachings and they're not really helping me advance very much. And that's because, my friends, these teachings were not written for you. They're not written for you. That doesn't mean that you can't benefit from it. That doesn't mean that there's nothing good in it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying they're not written for you. And let me explain what I mean by this. So if you can imagine, because we live in this patriarchal world, men and women have the same spiritual issue that we all need to overcome, becoming our fullest selves. And overcoming our ego. Our ego is the part of us that tells us that we're separate. It's the part that tells us that we're not connected with the divine. The ego is actually very important for us because that is the part that differentiates things. So the reason that you don't walk into a wall is because your ego says, I'm over here and that's the wall. And if I walk into it, I'm walking into something that's not me, right? And that's actually a good thing. It helps us navigate so that we don't all bump into each other and have accidents all the time. So we need that ability to discern. The ego is our discernment, but it also keeps us feeling separate from God, separate from the divine. And that sense of separation is the issue, right? Now, men and women have different ways that the ego manifests. And this is a huge generalization. So please know that you might be a man and you might not relate to it. You might be a woman and that's okay. I'm making a huge generalization and I own that right off the top right here. And I'm also owning that I'm really having this conversation because I want women to understand something so important about your path of healing and awakening and why it's the opposite of a man's path. So if you can imagine the world, imagine in your eye, you can see like just a circle and right in the middle is like the equator, right? And you've heard that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Well, in my example, the masculine energy is in the northern hemisphere, and the feminine energy is in the southern hemisphere. So we'll just say men are in the north and women are in the south, but we're really talking about the energy. Masculine energy is up here, and this is the energy that's revered and honored. And the feminine energy is the energy that is not. Okay? Now that line in the middle is the ego. or that I should say, the line in the middle is actually self-realization. It's enlightenment. It's awakening. It's that energy of oneness. We're in the ego when we're in the northern or southern hemisphere. Now, for men, from day one in a patriarchal society, whether you're aware of it or not, whether it happened in your personal family, for a boy who is born, he's automatically treated differently. He's honored, he's revered, he's treated as if he's capable. So teachers are going to interact with him differently. He's going to be given different opportunities. People are going to tell him that he's able to do anything that he wants to do. Whether he does or not, that's a different story. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the cultural imprinting. And so for a boy, what ends up happening is their ego can get big, right? Their ego gets filled with like, I think I'm really good. I might even be better than other people. And that overinflated sense of self is what happens. For a little girl that's born, unfortunately, she's not treated that way. Even if her parents really wanted a little girl, society in itself is not going to say to her, hey, we're so glad you're here. You can do anything. And unfortunately, even at the time of this recording, there are baby girls being born on the planet who just by the fact that they're female are abandoned or sometimes even killed because their family does not want to have a girl. They only want to have a boy. That's patriarchy. Now, you might not be in that kind of a culture, but energetically, as women, as girls, as females, we feel that and we know that. And then we get all the media stuff and everything. So our ego issue is we never feel good enough. We never feel worthy. Okay. And that keeps us in that southern hemisphere. And so the interesting thing is that a lot of times, if you were to talk, when I talk to my clients, most of my clients are women. Women don't think that they have an ego issue because they never think great about themselves. Like, oh, no. But that thing that tells you you're not good enough is your ego. In fact, a lot of times when women are looking to charge money or like they want to say that they're good at something, they're like, oh, is that my ego telling me that I'm good at something? I'm like, that's your ego telling you to worry about whether that's your ego telling you that you're good at something. It's like the feminine energy in a patriarchal culture is turned inward, and then we don't feel our worth. Okay, so we're both trying to get to that equator. Men are trying to get to that equator. Women are trying to get to that equator. But if you're in the northern hemisphere, you need to go south. And the Bible and so many scriptures that are out there are going to tell you how to go south. They're going to tell you, don't think about yourself. They're going to tell you, do unto others the way that you want them to do unto you. That Bible is going to tell you over and over again how to get to the equator by being there for others, letting go of what you need. Think about yourself less. That's what's going to get. Now, if you're in the northern hemisphere, that is gold. That is gold. And it's absolutely true. You need to let go of your sense of self-importance so you can come down to the place where you recognize your divinity and you're not separate from anybody and you're one with everything. That's where you're headed. But if you're in the southern hemisphere and you're reading scripture that tells you, don't think about yourself, treat other people the way that you want to be, you're going to end up going south and you're going to end up in the South Pole. And you're going to be like, why doesn't this feel good? Why am I still plagued with all of these problems? I'm doing what it says in scripture. I'm doing what my preacher says. I'm doing what the Bible says. Why am I not getting anywhere? Because that is not your issue, because that book was not written for you. Now, the only scripture that I'm aware of that honors the feminine energy is the Vedas in India, because some women contributed to that. And so when women are the writers of the scripture, I tend to trust that a bit more because men can't really know women's experience, right? Now, I'm not talking about the great enlightened masters who are one with everything and they're not trapped by any of this stuff, but that's not what most people are following. Most people are following cultural things that were passed down, spiritual truths that were passed down, written for a specific mindset issue that you do not have. Most of you anyway, as a woman. Now, you could be way up in that southern hemisphere, not quite at that equator. You might not be down at the South Pole, but a woman's path of healing and awakening is to honor and love herself. You have to start honoring yourself. You have to start respecting yourself. You have to start putting yourself, if not first, at least equal with other people. And this is the thing that women have a hard time doing. They're like, no, I want to be there for everybody else. Be there for everybody else, and you're going to live at the South Pole. And you're not going to feel happy, and you're not going to feel connected to spirit the way that you really want to. So I call this a healing path because it takes some healing for us to be able to love and honor ourselves and learn how to listen to our body and learn how to listen to our intuition, because honoring feminine energy in a patriarchal society is scary. Because anything feminine, and this is true whether you're a man or a woman, anything feminine is denigrated. We see this in men all the time. Like they're not encouraged to be intuitive. They're not encouraged to be in touch with their emotions. They're not encouraged to be creative necessarily. Linear things are the things that are really encouraged, math and science and all of that. Once they're successful at it and they're making a lot of money, then, they're praised for it. But in the beginning, anything that's considered a feminine quality is not considered something that's good. And so what do you do when that's all of your being, when you are a feminine being? Well, a lot of women, what they try to do is crawl over and go to that northern hemisphere and be that way. And if that works for you, you're welcome to do that. We're still trying to get to that middle place where we're not either or. We're in that place of everything, where we're just one with spirit. For a woman to do that, you have to learn how to honor yourself. You have to know that your path is going to be different. So as much as I love the teachings of Christ so much, I have to say, when he says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, for women, we need to change that a little bit. And the way that we need to change that is by saying, do unto yourself as you do unto others. Do unto yourself as you do unto others, because you're already doing that. You're already doing that. I can guess right now, if I was to read those 10 commandments, most of you are probably not having a hard time with them. Most of you are not struggling with, whatever the 10 commandments are that are so like, oh my God, we have to do these things. So honoring God. If you go to a congregation, 80% of the congregation is usually women. Respecting and honoring your parents. Most women honor relationships and family. It really means a lot to them. These are not things that are like really difficult for women to do. Don't kill. Most women are not out committing, these mass shootings that I see every day, literally in my country. They're usually not done by somebody in a feminine body. Doesn't mean that it can't be ever, because we're all part of this culture. But 90% of the time, that's not the case. So do not kill, thou shalt not kill. Who's that for? Who's that really for? I know there's a lot of interpretations, and I know that I'm generalizing. So please understand, like I'm not trying to criticize. I'm trying to point out to you, if these things were written for you, if they were really written for you, would it say, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife? Is that written for you? Unless the Bible is written for lesbians, I just don't think that was written for you. I think that was written for a male perspective. Now, it's been updated and it's been changed, but I'm talking about when it was written. When it was written, it wasn't written for you. In fact, back then, women weren't allowed to read. They weren't even allowed to read. They didn't know how to read, and they weren't allowed to read. They were kept separate from scriptural study. So how could it have been written for you? It's not. But that's okay. You can still get good things from that teaching. It's still a powerful spiritual teaching, especially about the law of cause and effect. It's a powerful teaching. But what I'm going to say to you, and this is why I work with Mother Mary's energy, because she is a living example of how to be a powerful spiritual woman and be in a body at the same time. And that's why I am committing myself to really helping women to do this. Women don't really have a path to follow that is for them. And I am going to be channeling that, I guess is the best way I can say it. I already know my way, which is following Mother Mary's path, the path of becoming a channel of incredible light, the path of being able to be fully in your body and fully connected to spirit. That is the path for women. And we don't even have a word. And this is so important to recognize, is that there's not even a word that we have for a powerful spiritual woman. There's not even a word that we have for a powerful woman. Most of the words, because we live in a patriarchal culture, most of the words that we have for a woman of power have either been turned into something negative or they've become sexualized. Now think about this. The only word that I can think of like a smart, powerful woman was the word maven. Like, oh, she's a maven. That's the only word I can think of. And I was like, if somebody was the master of the house, he's the master and she's the mistress. Mistress used to be a positive word. Is it a positive word now? No, it is not. You don't want to be called that. A powerful magical man is called a wizard. A powerful magical woman is called a witch. How many women want to be referred to? Now, some people claim that as an act of rebellion, but Harry Potter is a wizard. And, most people, they don't want that word. Witch has become literally demonized, right? If you're an opera singer, you're a maestro. If you're a woman, you're a diva. How many people want to be called a diva? Is it a compliment to call you a diva? Nope. Even just being the boss of your own company, what do they call you? Lady boss. We don't have a word for it. And the word that I am choosing to claim is the word priestess. And it even makes me nervous to say it because I'm like, oh, can I use that word? And first of all, I don't want to step on anybody's toes because I know a priestess is very specific to a certain spiritual path. But what I learned is that a priestess is not a female priest. Priestesses actually came before the energy of priests, and they are the original beings that held the energy and were able to channel spirit and be fully in the body. And they acted as intermediaries and conduits and agents of change and healing and power and creation. So you're going to hear me using that word. I'm going to be brave because it makes me a little bit nervous, but I am going to be using that word. And I encourage you to use that. If you're somebody who is a spiritual leader, maybe you're a priestess. Maybe you're somebody who is highly creative and highly intuitive and can channel energy and loves to create ritual and helps people, heal or whatever it might be. We need to start reclaiming these words and start forging our own path. And this is the thing that I'm so excited about because this is what I'm going to be doing moving forward. So you're going to be hearing me talk about this a lot more. So my friend, please know that the path for a woman's path of healing and awakening is going to be the opposite of a man's path. Doesn't mean there's not good things in the path. And if you find things that work for you, you go right ahead. But mostly I find that women need to learn to honor and respect themselves. This is why I think Mary Magdalene's energy is so huge on the planet right now, because she embodies that. She is the full embodiment of, this is who I am. I know my power. I'm fully in my body. I'm not afraid of it. I'm fully connected to spirit. I'm not afraid of it. I'm owning my experience. And I don't care at all about your opinion about me. Like, doesn't matter. I love Mary Magdalene's energy for that reason, because she is fully in that priestess energy. She's fully in that energy of knowing who she is and why she's here, irrespective of the opinions of others. And I love that. That's the energy that I really want to dive deep into, following Mother Mary's path, looking at Mary Magdalene, looking at the beautiful women who have walked this path before, learning how to honor themselves and walk their own road. Now, the thing is, you don't have to walk it alone. We get to walk hand in hand. We get to support each other, but your path is going to be your own. So whatever you can do, my friend, to honor yourself today, know that honoring yourself and putting yourself first is heading north. You're heading to that equator. You're heading to God consciousness. You're heading to oneness and self-realization when you can learn to honor yourself. What happens as we both, men and women, get closer and closer to that equator, everything else starts to fall away and it doesn't matter. So you will see men and you will see women that as they're really, really getting to that point in the spiritual path, things like that don't matter, like because their sense of identity starts to merge into the energy of oneness. And that's the point. So once they get to that point, it doesn't matter. But if you're way down here, in South America somewhere, and you're looking at that person, you're like, well, how am I ever going to get there? I'm telling you, honor yourself and start with your body. Love your feminine body. Love her. Do whatever you can to take good care of her, because she is the temple of your spirit. She is the temple of the divine feminine right here. And she will guide you to your truth, and you can trust her. And it's nothing in our culture is going to tell you to do that, but I'm telling you to do that. You can trust your body. So my friend, I'm putting it out there. I feel a little vulnerable sharing all this with you, but this is everything I really, really believe. And I hope that it's helpful for you. And if you are like me, when you come from a background that doesn't really fit you, and you're really looking to find your own way, I invite you onto this path of healing and awakening, by honoring who you are, by being willing to own your power, take good care of yourself, take good care of your body, rest when you need to rest, let yourself connect with nature, let yourself do all the things that tell your own subconscious mind that you matter and that you are important. And I guarantee you, you will begin to see miracles in your life. If you did resonate with this, I would love to hear your comments. Let me know what you thought about this. And if this is, something that you feel like, yeah, I can relate to that, because I really want to know if this is something that makes sense to you. I tried to be as clear as I could in describing it. And I'll be talking a lot more about this and about why connecting with the energy of Mother Mary is so important to help us learn how to really be these channels, learn how to be this beautiful priestess energy in a bigger and more powerful way, whatever that is for you, your version of it, not my version of it. But that's what I'm going to be sharing with you over these next few episodes. So thank you so much, my friend. Remember, the key to magnifying your miracle is knowing that your miracle is already here. And the truth is, you are the miracle. God bless you, my friends. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.